Today, I want to talk about the importance of understanding the concept of death and how we could turn such a grim notion into a positive force that will make our lives better. This notion of death is particularly important for me because I've always had a bad relationship with death, like most people actually, and it only got better with reading Stoicism. Since a very young age, I've always feared the death of loved ones. So for example, if I'd call someone from my family or my friends and they wouldn't pick up immediately, I'd automatically think about the worst case scenario that the person had an accident and passed away. And I kept noticing this pattern over and over again. So eventually I thought to myself, if it's inevitable, then I must find a way to prepare myself for it. As Carl Jung says, where your fear is, there is your task. When I first read this sentence, I realized that I must confront this fear. And I tried to understand the origin of this anxiety. I knew that this anxiety meant something, and I realized that I've never questioned it. Rollo May, the founder of existential psychology, says in his book, "It is best to remind ourselves that anxiety signifies a conflict, and so long as a conflict is going on, a constructive solution is possible." So I took Carl Jung's and Rollo May's advice, and I decided to confront this fear of mortality and of death. And my constructive solution was the Stoic reminder of death. Memento Mori. Indeed, this idea at first might appear counterproductive, but I will show you in this video the position that Stoicism takes on mortality and death and how we can transform it into a positive force in our lives. Memento Mori is a Latin phrase meaning remember that you must die. It serves as an important reminder to cherish the present moment and urges us to contemplate the impermanence of life and our inevitable fate, death. This ancient wisdom encourages us to recognize the transitory nature of our existence. It inspires us to live with intention, courage, and gratitude. This idea of memento mori exists in different forms in all cultures and traditions. In Japanese culture, Buddhist culture, the Sufis, the Greeks, and the Romans all understood the necessity to remind humans of their mortality. This idea emerged as a remedy for our natural tendency as humans to delude ourselves into thinking we are immortal. In modern society, death is a subject that is often considered taboo. It is rare to openly discuss it with anyone without being met with resistance. Our ancestors were more familiar with death and encountered it more frequently. That's why we are far less prepared for it when it eventually touches our lives. At first, death acceptance can be perceived as a grim notion and an anxiety-provoking idea, especially by those who are not accustomed to thinking about it from a philosophical perspective. And to be honest, I completely understand that, because who wants to think about death? What if instead of being scared and unwilling to embrace this truth, we did the opposite? What if reflecting and meditating on death was simply the key to living a better life, an anxiety-free life? According to the Stoics, the first step to make peace with death is to understand that it's part of nature. As Seneca said, "Death is not an evil. What is it then? The one law mankind has that is free of all discrimination. We might be divided by our status, possessions, or reputation, but death acts as an equalizer and puts us all on the same ground and the same level." Accepting death as a part of life and part of nature can set us free and allow us to fully embrace each day as a present that is given to us. The Stoics have always preached the idea of living in accordance with nature. What is birth and death but part of this nature? This calm demeanor was deemed virtuous by the Stoics because we cannot control nor alter this fact. We must simply accept it. And speaking of control, as you've probably seen in the previous videos, the idea of control is a central idea to the Stoics. You can see it with the dichotomy of control of Epictetus, which simply states that some things are up to us, some things aren't. And it's up to us, up to the wise person to make that distinction. And in that case, death belongs to the things we cannot control. Even though certain lifestyle choices can contribute to a long and healthy life, we'd still never know how much time we have left. You simply cannot control the length of your life or of loved ones. It is something that we will have to face anytime, whether we're ready for it or not. So the real question is, what can we control? So what we can control is the quality of our lives instead of its length. According to the Stoics, the distinction between quality and quantity should make us reassess everything in our lives. Marcus Aurelius says, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say." Our relationship with our family and friends, our pursuits and objectives, our appreciation of the lives we have. All these things are often forgotten and taken for granted because we don't think about death. But when we do, we quickly realize and become aware of their paramount importance. We tend to neglect our health, engage in vain conversations, and follow meaningless pursuits. This is what the Stoics call wasting our time. We waste our time as if we get to live forever, and simply put, Memento Mori is the urgent reminder that it's not the case. When you think about your life from this perspective or through this lens, you question everything you do, and you quickly and easily make the distinction, as Marcus Aurelius said, between what's essential and what's inessential. This is often the thought process of people that go through a midlife crisis when they reach 50 or 60 years old, because when they question their life, they realize that they've wasted most of it, the majority of their times, on things or activities deemed inessential. So this is what strikes them with a strong feeling of anxiety that they wasted their time. And the point of Memento Mori is not to wait until you're 50 or 60 years old to question your life or to make that reassessment of the priorities or the purposes you're following. Death is a reminder that we shouldn't merely exist or survive by dragging ourselves from one day to the other. We should stop doing things just to get them done. Strive to get absorbed in the process, passionate about every detail. The Stoics believe that this mindset is key to achieving a profound sense of fulfillment. So apart from improving the quality of our lives, which is definitely very important, Memento Mori serves as a reminder to make the most out of every single day. Seneca says, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time." You should ask yourself every day if you're being the most successful version you can be. And if not, you're failing to balance your life's books, as Seneca said, and you're falling victim to our immortality bias. This mindset shift would push us to live in the present moment, not yesterday, not tomorrow, not in the future, but just right now. We will regard every day as an opportunity, as a gift, and then we try to make our best to seize the day. And that reminds me of a very famous quote in the movie of Troy from Achilles, where he says, "The gods envy us. They envy us because we're mortal. After all, any moment may be our last. Everything is more beautiful because we're doomed. You will never be lovelier than you are now. We will never be here again." I think this is a powerful quote because some people might think that we'd be better off as immortals, but in reality, I think our mortality is our gift. It makes everything more exciting because you never know when your life will end. The abundance of time will make everything boring. You'd always be able to postpone everything to a later date or to tomorrow and never actually take action. But since we're not immortals and our time is limited and our time is a precious resource, we should treat it as such. There is only one day left, always starting over. It is given to us at dawn and taken away from us at dusk. Jean-Paul Sartre. Countless people turn their lives around when faced with illness, the death of a loved one, or some other tragedy. It seems as if we need to be shocked into accepting our mortality. Rather than waiting on a major life change, we should choose to live life to the fullest now. So this is the core principle of Memento Mori, transforming a negative notion into a positive force that will add vibrancy to our lives and push us to live a more meaningful life. But then one might ask, what is even a meaningful life? So the purpose here is not to discuss how to live a meaningful life according to Stoic standards, but rather how the Stoics suggest we live a life true to ourselves. Marcus Aurelius says, "Stop whatever you're doing for a moment and ask yourself, am I afraid of death because I won't be able to do this anymore?" My interpretation of this quote is that Marcus Aurelius is urging us to ask ourselves what is so important in our lives that we don't want death to take it from us. What is that thing that we really don't want to give up? Is it our family, our friends, our art, our passions? Whatever our answers might be, this should be our life's purpose, and this should be our only focus in life. By asking ourselves this question and giving an honest answer, we're one step closer in identifying what for us would be a meaningful life, what would be the most important thing to pursue in our life. Imagine yourself at the age of 60 and ask yourself this crucial question. What do you want your life to be like? Envision a day that would fulfill you completely. If I told you that you would pass away tomorrow, What would that look like? This image you have in your mind should be your life's purpose. As simple as that. Whenever I do this exercise, my answer is always my family, my passion for working out, and reading philosophy. This answer provides me with everything I need to know as to where I should direct my energy and my attention. It is important to note that this is just a reordering of priorities. In no way it is suggesting us to completely ignore everything else. The goal here is to have a clear vision and a clear set of priorities to work towards. So the last point I want to discuss here is the idea that Memento Mori would create a sense of urgency in your life. As I mentioned in the previous video, I created this channel because of the sense of urgency I had after reading Seneca's On the Shortness of Life. This essay created a sense of urgency within me, and I realized that, as Seneca said, every single day we approach death. And then I realized that whatever I want to do, I should do today and not postpone anything. And I've had this idea of creating this channel for a really long time because I wanted to share my passion for philosophy with the world. And I realized that since it helped me a lot, it would definitely help other people as well. This sense of urgency is the best antidote to procrastination. The reminder that you will die and that your potential might go to waste is very effective in enhancing your creativity and pushing you to take action. This idea reminds me a lot of Parkinson's law, which states, work expands to fill the time available for its completion. If you think about it, when we were at school or at university, if we had an exam or a paper to submit, we wouldn't be able to get really a lot of work done unless the deadline was approaching. And once it was approaching, we'd get really productive and creative and we'd get everything done in one night. And this is exactly the principle of Memento Mori, but applied to our lives. This is just a parallel and not to be taken literally. But if you apply this in your life, you'd realize that death would act as your deadline. And that idea would push you to be more creative and more productive to get whatever you're working on done. But the idea here is not to rush anything, but rather just get started. Meditating on your mortality is only depressing if you miss the point. It is simply a tool to create priority and meaning. It's a tool that generations have used to create real perspective and urgency, to treat our time as a gift and not waste it on the trivial and vain. Death doesn't make life pointless, but rather purposeful. A simple reminder can bring us closer to the life we've always wanted to live. Today could be your last day, so choose to live it wisely. And if this video wasn't for you, it was too anxiety-provoking, then I completely understand. And let me give you this quote from Epictetus that hopefully will make you feel a bit better. Death does not concern us because as long as we exist, death is not here. And once it does come, we no longer exist. Hope that helps. Thank you for watching.